Tony Martignetti nonprofit radio coverage of 18NTC, the Nonprofit Technology Conference, coming to you from the Convention Center in New Orleans, sponsored, of course, hosted by the Nonprofit Technology Network, N10. This interview, like all our 18NTC interviews, is sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. My guests are Amy Braiterman. She's the Associate Director of Digital Media at CDR Fundraising Group, and Dan Clasgens, Digital Marketing Strategist for DAV, the Disabled American Veterans. Amy, Dan, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, Darren.
Pleasure to have you on Nonprofit Radio. My pleasure. Your workshop topic is stay out of email jail and avoid deliverability death traps. Yes, that's very good. And now I covered this probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I learned that there's such a thing as an email deliverability specialist. That's a title. People study this stuff.
You have to study this stuff to stay on top of this stuff.
Okay.
It's Amy, a full-time job.
For real.
Amy, let's stay with you. What kinds of problems are we having generally? We got plenty of time together to go into detail, but start us off general.
Generally, I think our biggest problem is that there's a lack of control. There are 3 main factors that kind of go into email deliverability, and that is the email platform that you're using, you yourself, the nonprofit, and your best practices, or how you're sending emails. And then lastly, the mailbox providers, Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, Outlook, they all have different rules for how you get your emails in their inboxes, how you reach your supporters. And because of those 3 factors and the complexities that they all have, it's really tough to just stay on top of everything. Makes it a full-time
Okay, it sounds
job.
like a bit of a morass, Dan. A morass. Yes?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. It's changing.
That was your cue. I thought you were a radio pro. And Dan,
I missed the cue.
Now.
Well, I think what we're finding, honestly, is you want to engage with people that want you to engage with them. And I mean, we as marketers, we are not really big fans of having to keep up with these rules. But as a consumer, Tony, I mean, you only really want to get the information that you're interested in.
Yes.
And from that standpoint, I think Google and Yahoo and I mean, their job's not to serve us; it's to serve the consumer, and I think they're doing a good job of it.
Okay, so they have the interests of their customers, principally, right, and not you.
Right.
Other people are serving you, but not the email providers.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think the biggest challenge is it's just such a huge change of mindset of going into it because, you know, in the world where I live at Disabled American Veterans, I mean, we've been one of a very large direct mail operator for a long time, and I mean, buying lists, renting lists. I mean, that's part of the direct mail business. And there, you just take every address and name you can get, and you send them mail, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way in the inbox anymore, and it's causing us to really change the way we think about how we do email folks.
And I think it's also because it used to work like that. I mean, email best practices years ago were send your emails to everybody and anybody. We don't care who you are. We don't actually really care if you're that interested in us or what you are interested in. And because of the fact that our inboxes generate so much information, so many emails.
That was 12 years ago.
It was even 3 years ago. I remember before I joined CDR doing an email audit where that was the organization's practice. And I was trying to explain to them, hey, we can't keep doing this because you're going to get these 5% open rates are going to ruin your sender reputation. And they're like, sender what? Like, 2 years ago, I'm sure there was folks in our session today who are like, we're still sending to anybody. We know about this segment thing and we know why we should do it, but we have to, it's a total, as Dan said, like change your mindset of going from we want to reach everybody and we need max impressions to we need to make sure that we are maintaining our reputation and how we're interacting with our supporters.
Okay, I mean, this sender reputation, I mean, it's a pretty simple phrase to understand, but it's what the email platforms are
They each have
judging you by.
They each have their own score. That's what makes it tricky. They don't all play by the same rules.
Yeah. All right. It's a morass. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like sender reputation, we were saying in our session today, is basically like your credit
Your
score.
session's already done.
Yeah, we
you're
already
on the
did
downside.
it. We're on the downside. We're coming
You're
off
the
of like,
caboose, man.
Yeah, man.
You're the caboose.
Why'd you even show?
Well, there's
I
happy
mean-
hours here right after this.
And
Right, the wine, the open bar. Oh, no, it's not open bar. The cash bar is only about 25 feet away. So
also, we
Okay.
figured,
Thanks for
hey,
stopping
why
by
not
on
reach
your
more
way.
people and tell them
okay.
about all of our trials and tribulations and successes and maybe
Okay.
not
And
such
here's the
successes.
thing, email. I mean, whether you're a large nonprofit like myself at Disabled American Veterans, or you're the smallest nonprofit in this room, this challenge is facing all of us.
you've got to send a reputation.
Yes.
Whether
Yeah.
you know it or not, you've got one.
You've got one.
Okay.
And it may be good or may be bad. And it's the same like analogy as if you're at your credit score. If you go to buy a car, you can buy a car with a bad credit score. You're just going to have a huge interest rate. You can still send emails with a bad sender reputation. You just might not be actually getting to the people.
What are some of the factors that go into the sender reputation, Dan? Can you tick off? a
Well,
couple
I
things?
mean,
I
definitely.
understand it varies across email platforms. but-
Yes. So, I mean, how much people are engaging with your emails? Are they opening your emails? Are they clicking on things? Who you're sending it to? We'd spent a lot of time in our session today talking about spam traps. And, the providers out there, pristine spam mail traps, for instance, are one where they actually put these fake emails out there. And if you're not practicing best practices, buying lists and doing these other types of activities where these emails are on there and you're mailing to them, that's a trigger that you're not following these best practices. So there's these traps out there. It's like a landmine, man. And we're just
Spam
walking
traps?
through there.
Spam traps?
Spam traps. There's
Yeah,
all kinds
yeah.
of them.
So they're seeding bogus addresses onto lists that you
And-
shouldn't be buying.
Yes.
Okay, and you may be. What else? What are spam traps? What other?
So we covered 4 of them today, the 4 main ones. We did the pristine. The next one is the recycled spam trap. And this is something that, so pristine, the big difference is a human never had that. They are created by the email industry to make sure you as an email sender are following good practices.
A pristine.
A pristine.
It's called a pristine.
Yeah, that's what
Pristina?
it's called. Nope,
Or
just
no,
pristine.
A
Like a
pristine.
pristine, beautiful beach
Okay.
with no
But it's not very
trash.
beautiful.
No, it's
Okay,
not.
what's a pristine?
Okay, so the pristine is they're created by non-humans to monitor your email practices, to make sure that email senders like DAV or any nonprofit or any for-profit consumer product is sending emails responsibly.
How does it do that? How does it work?
I have no clue because I am not that technical, but you can Google and find out a little bit about it.
Yes.
All right.
I mean,
Look into pristines.
Yeah.
there are other type of traps we talked
Yeah,
about
well,
where
there's
like
4. Right,
typos.
we've done
Yeah.
2.
So
yeah, there's 4.
typos, like you misspell it, like instead of Gmail, Gmail, Yahoo without one of the O's or something. It gets onto your list. And
Fake addresses.
Fake
Like you
addresses.
don't really want to give someone your address, but you need to complete the form.
So if you're sending to a lot of these, like where the email address is misspelled, or the domain is misspelled, that goes into this?
Yeah,
it's
factors
not
into
as
it.
much of a factor as some. There's different variances to
Yeah,
these,
yeah, ways.
but they all play into it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was the 4th one?
The 4th one is a roll account. It's a little bit more difficult to explain, but it's kind of in that same vein of like it's not really you, it's something else that was added on there. And then the recycled, which we touched on for a second, but that is an email address that used to exist by a real human being and then is no longer in use. And after a period of time, the email provider, the mailbox provider, has said this is not a true email address anymore.
Okay, and so they weight all these things together, they put them through their mash,
Yep.
and they decide on your sender reputation.
Yes. And it's like a
Okay.
scale from 1 to 100. Anything above 80 is great. 70 to 80 is saying you're doing well, but you have room for improvement. Below 70 says, wow, you really need to fix your practices.
And that's where it could impact your deliverability.
Yes.
I mean, so you're saying the email providers will just not deliver your messages?
Yeah,
To,
they may not.
They just go off sometimes into la la land.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're-
wholesale? I mean, the whole campaign? Or
Yeah.
this one whole send?
All of it.
Can do that? Or,
There-
well, it's going to vary. Again, it's going
It
to vary
varies based off
on the
provider.
email provider that you're going through to get to your constituents.
That is correct.
Okay, but you shouldn't be risking. Obviously, you don't want to be risking it. I mean, if you're if you're below 70 with Gmail, you're in bad shape.
I think the big thing is,
Your
and
score is
coming
under 70.
from a fundraising perspective at a nonprofit like DAV, I mean, we are driven by the ultimate dollar, right? So trying to get folks to realize that, hey, we can't blast out all 500,000 of these people because half of them aren't even opening the emails. If they're not opening, they're not engaging. It's hurting all that impacts deliverability. But what Amy has found with us and with other accounts at CDR and an industry has is we're actually emailing less people more frequently, and we're generating more revenue from it.
Okay. Your deliverability, your reputation is higher. You're sending to people who truly are engaging with you. All those reasons, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Man, he took the Cliff Note version of our session today and
It
just
worked really
nailed
well.
it.
Yeah, all right, let's wrap it up. We got another 15 minutes or so, roughly, but it'll go fast. Trust me. Okay. So we talked about the avoiding the death traps. Are there any more death traps? Anything we need to know about what the industry is doing to snag us up? We covered it.
Yeah, I mean, spam traps are the big thing. The thing that we've really shared with people today is that hitting a spam trap isn't the end of the world. When you Google for reports or to find out about spam traps, the resources, like what you'll see back is all these very dramatic things that make you feel like a horrible email marketer if you've hit a spam trap.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world. You can really recover, and spam traps are telling you that you actually have a symptom of a larger problem, that there's something going on with your email practices that is just not working, and you need to take a look at it and figure out, what will work. I was actually thinking about this, Dan, like when we hit a pristine spam trap in January of 2017 and had a 2% open rate from an audience that we were getting 17% open rates before. So it's a huge drop. And it let us know we clearly have an issue. And I honestly think that hitting that spam trap and experiencing that was probably the best thing that's happened to us.
It definitely opened our eyes and changed the way we act.
Yeah.
Okay. You two, you work together.
We work together.
DAV works with CDR.
Yes.
Dav, cadaver. You can spell cadaver with CDR.
That's not a
quite.
word we want to
Yeah.
associate with the partnership. Especially our fundraising effort.
Right. It's growing. It's always fundraising's growing.
Let's talk about segmentation, because that's a solution to this, right?
It is.
Okay,
Definitely.
Dan, how is segmentation a solution?
Well, I think just knowing what people are interested in and feeding them information that relates to their interests is huge. And once again, I mean, we're come from a world of direct mail where we're mailing out this mail piece to hundreds of thousands of people. And that's what's cool about digital is you can really get it down to a very small interest group and hit them with that interest. I think what we've done with our segmentation is really paid big dividends, and the fact that we're able to see, because each of these people respond differently to the types of messages, to the different types of subject lines. So we're able to test better with segmentation.
Yeah.
And overall, I just think that it goes back to what I said before. People that want to get our stuff, they're going to get what they want, and that's why we're seeing the metrics and the click-throughs and everything else respond accordingly.
Is there any segmentation beyond interest?
Well, yeah. I mean, we got the frequency that they donate, obviously. I mean, when's the last time they made a gift? What type of action did they take with the organization? I mean, did they attend a job fair? Were they a 5K participant? Are they a veteran? Are they not a veteran? I mean, there's a lot of things in segmentation. There's a lot of layers to it. You need really good data. I think one of my challenges at our organization, and we're striving to get better every day, is taking all these separate databases out there, that these silos that exist, and merging them together and having this global view of how this hand impacts this hand. And that's part of my job every day. And while Amy and her CDR team really works on developing great strategy, I'm in there educating the stakeholders and trying to manage all the politics that go on inside a large organization. And making strides. People are listening to what I'm saying there. So from that point, we're doing good things.
Okay. Amy, anything you want to add on segmentation, or you feel like Dan
covered it. I think
adequately.
The best thing about having Dan as like our email partner or digital fundraising partner and marketing is that he's done an amazing job educating internally, learning. We're all learning together, and then getting those stakeholders bought in. And if you're a nonprofit out there and you're struggling with this, that is probably the hardest part, is educating internal resources and just stakeholders about, hey, we've got to make these changes, because yes, the money is still coming in, but eventually if our sender score continues to drop, we're going to not see that money.
Yeah. You have a case study, 126% increase in open rates. Is that at DAV or somewhere else?
No, it was at DAV.
Okay.
So when we hit that spam trap and our open...
What can we all learn from this?
What can we learn from it?
Yeah.
We can learn that you need to segment your audience, find out what content is relevant to them, get buy-in from internal stakeholders, and you can recover from any mishap that has happened to you. You can get open rates that go from 2% up to where ours are usually steady now in the 20s at 23, 24%. You know, we used to judge a good open rate at like 15% was an industry standard, I think. For us at DAV and CDR, I get bummed out when we're not at a 22 or a 21. I'm like, oh, let's figure this out. Let's see what we can do. I think the other metric that is our new favorite is open to clicks. So this says, of the people that opened my email, this percentage clicked on it. And that tells you if you sent them content.
Meaning click something in it.
Click something in it.
Okay.
Like click to a donation form, click to a survey.
More information.
More anything.
Okay.
And that tells you if your message and the content you're providing your supporters with means something, matters to them.
It allows us to also see the content they're interested in. What are they clicking on? What aren't they clicking on? I think the other thing that's really played into the whole email challenge we face is the idea of unsubscribe versus spam. People marking you as a spammer is like death sentence. I mean, essentially, if they're saying you're spamming, not only are they saying that they don't want your stuff, but they say that you're annoying them and that you're not. They didn't ask you to come there in the first place. And what we've learned, and we're learning every day, is we send out a large audience and you get a handful of spam rates, but the percentage is so low that it's not as impactful. If we just make out 100 people and 2 people click on spam, suddenly that's 2%. And that spam percentage rate is another thing that plays into deliverability. So one of the things that we're working to do and put more in our strategy is to make it more, educate people how to unsubscribe easier, making unsubscribe more available, because if they don't want it to be bothered, then we want to stop bothering them. And that's really what these providers are forcing us to do. And at the end of the day, I think from a consumer standpoint, it's awesome. But from a marketer standpoint, hey, those that adjust and go and change the way that they do things, I think they're still going to find, probably what we're finding is even more success than the way we used to operate.
How the heck are the real spammers getting through then? Because I'm marking junk all the time.
A lot of IP addresses, a lot of
they're spoofing. All right, or they're constantly turning over.
Yes.
Like every day. I mean,
there's a lot of ways.
Every day they got to change.
Every day they change. I think there's something like 234 million spam traps out there, and it could even be billion. Like, it's huge, and there's not like a crowdsourcing thing that allows you to track spam and see how many traps are currently live and what's happening in the internet, just to give you like a thermometer check and a pulse rate of what's happening out there.
All right, because I know some of the bad guys are getting through.
Yeah, they get through.
All right.
You just want to minimize it. I mean, at one point, in order to get that very low open rate and have the issues that we saw, we probably hit a few hundred spam traps. You're not going to hit one spam trap. There's not like one out there that's like, oh, I hit the one. You're going to hit multiples. You could hit 3 recycled. Like, we celebrated huge success going from a few hundred to we only hit 3. Like, that's amazing because there's so many out there and it's very easy to get to.
Let's talk about re-engaging. You touched on it, Amy. Re-engaging people who aren't engaged, aren't clicking. What are some tips for this? Let's spend a few minutes on this.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we all struggle with is it's hard to say goodbye to people. Like, you want, it as fundraisers.
Yeah, even unsubscribes.
Yeah.
We don't like to see that list shrink.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially for what we pay, the cost per acquisition
Yeah.
in this industry is so high that it's hard to give up on that.
So what we've started doing is every time we'll do a full send sometimes to our unengaged file, and we'll recover some people, which we'll see that as a win. We'll take the hit on the spam complaint rate to bring back some more folks. We've advertised to them in different channels, whether it's in Facebook or doing in-mail ads, like for Yahoo or Gmail. Those are the sponsored ads at the top of your inbox.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then what we're actually really focusing now on is how can we be a lot more thoughtful in trying to re-engage. So making the qualifications for who's going to get that re-engagement email stricter. Like, let's send to lapsed donors from the last 2 years and see how that gets us. Let's do lapsed donors the last year. Let's do lapsed donors for a year and open an email a year ago. So we're working through to see what kind of rates we can get, who we can bring back, and figure out what works for DAV. And that's kind of our re-engagement tactics.
What do you feel is a decent re-engagement rate?
I don't think we have that yet.
I don't think we have that. And the thing is every time we hit this unengaged audience, so there's good that comes out of it, but there's bad too. So what we're really trying to do is sort of strike a balance of what that is. And I think at DAV, for us as well, it's a harder nut to crack because we're dealing with a lot of different groups here. Like we have our donors, as I mentioned, right? Then there's the 1.3 million members of the organization that are an entirely different group of folks. We have our advocates, those that are part of our Commanders Action Network that are really interested in our legislative issues. And all these different arms out there, what might work in one audience doesn't necessarily translate to another audience. So I think as you look at your organization, you have to, that's where it goes back to the segmentation and understanding what drives those people, what motivates those people. And the more data you have to support that, I think it will help you figure out what are the better strategies to re-engage in these folks. And at what point, as Amy said, are we willing to say goodbye?
Is it possible, that we've talked around this a little bit, to figure out why your emails aren't getting through? Can you tell whether you hit a spam trap or was it pristine, or is it possible to evaluate that, or is it not?
You can. Yeah? There are companies out there that can give you reports to tell you what types of spam traps you're hitting, to tell you how many different IP addresses are out there for you. So there's lots of different ways to figure out. They'll tell you what's going on, but they won't say, oh, this is specifically why you did it. That's kind of up to you to figure out, but chances are, but you can get that information at least on what types of traps you're hitting, because what it does, it allows you then to go clean up your file. I think that's another important topic that we haven't talked on is let's clean up the file. So now that you identified you have a problem, I hit 2 spam traps or 100 spam traps, whatever your case may be, you can work with different services to have them look at your file, they match it up with the different mailbox providers, and they'll tell you whether or not their valid email address is invalid, whether they have a number of hard bounces, soft bounces, whether they're spam complainers, so they have the propensity to hit spam on your emails. And what that allows you to do is send to the valid emails, take all of those invalid, take all the ones that are marked as spam and put them in a group and not talk to those people. So then that also helps to ensure your deliverability is happening and that you have a good sender score.
Yeah, okay. We still have a few minutes left together. What haven't we talked about that we should be fleshing out more?
I definitely think the tools we're using. Different nonprofits of different sizes have different tools. And she mentions a lot of these providers that score your tools, but just the tools that you have. I mean, obviously, there's big companies like Blackbaud, there's the MailChimps and the different things, but knowing how, turning to them as a resource on some of their standards, because as Amy mentioned before, there's 3 parties in this, and they're one of the parties.
Yeah.
So the Googles and the Yahoos and all those providers there, I mean, they're the gatekeeper on that end, and we can practice our best practices there, but take advantage of those resources out there. I don't think that enough people actually go on and look at the research and the information that's out there. And this is
you're saying that the email providers
providers that they themselves put out there. And Amy and I, we're more marketers than we are IT techies. So if your organization has somebody in charge of email that's more of a marketer, or somebody on the communications team, for instance, it's good to loop in some of these IT folks. I know for me, in my organization, I would have been lost without some of the stuff that CDRs help us uncover, having them to turn to as a resource to help implement some of these things, because it changes every day, too. I mean, we've made a lot of progress, but this story's not ending because...
and then it could be 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
When Google changes something, they're not sending out a press release.
Yeah.
Right? We're learning it after the fact.
After you've done a campaign or a send or something, yeah.
So it's fun. The job's never the same any day. That's one thing that you can say for sure when it comes to email marketing.
100%. And Dan is totally right. Even us as a fundraising agency, our focus is on fundraising and marketing and raising money. And reaching out to the platform that you're using to send your email, getting their technical help is huge. I don't think I would be where I am, or as a group with DAV, without having the support of their IT department. They helped us do some further authentication called DMARC and DKIM, which folks can Google, learn all about it. It's a little bit confusing, but it's really important because it ensures that hackers aren't spoofing your emails and that aren't sending things under the DAV domain that aren't actually DAV.
Now, we have jargon jail on Tony Martin Nonprofit
sorry.
Radio. You just transgressed, seriously.
Sorry.
But we're I don't think we have enough time to explain, but just repeat DMARC, D-M-A-R-K. You can Google that. And DKIM.
It's demarcated with a C.
Oh, yes.
D-M-A-R-C.
Yes.
And DKIM, did you
Yeah.
say? D-K-I-M?
Yep.
I've seen these things in print. I don't know what they mean. All right, we're going to let you off the hook.
Thank you.
Jargon
Sorry
jail.
for the jargon jail. But it is very important to just go and check it out. Go ask your IT department about it. They can actually educate you on these two terms and check and see if you need to get better email authentication and implement these two tactics.
Okay. Dan, anything you want to close with? Got to give you a few seconds to close.
No, I honestly, I just think that, like I said, it's ever evolving. So it's going to change a month from now, 6 months from now. Stay on top of your game. If they want you to contact them, that's who you want to contact. Engage them and make it more about them instead of about you. And I think the more nonprofits do that, the more success they're going to find.
That's Dan Clasgens. Did I say it right?
You got it.
I did, with a hard G. Digital marketing strategist at DAV, the Disabled American Veterans, and also Amy Braiterman, Associate Director, Digital Media at CDR Fundraising Group. Thank you, Amy, Dan. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tony.
This interview sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. This is Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of the 2018 Nonprofit Technology Conference. Thanks so much for being with us.